Well, thank you very much, Nick, and great job again setting all this Doc Talk up. And Dr. Danielle Prescott from Dr. Lynn Leisbrick. We're a double Doc Talk. We got Mikkel in here to assist us, and I'm excited. And Danielle, before we get started, and it's all about you today, I just find myself in shock. I grew up in Kansas City, and when my son played soccer at 5, I took him out of it. He got 2 goals. I was scared that he might check this sport out. Later in life, I must have done okay. He went and worked both women's World Cup. The one with SARS when he came back from China, and it was exciting. I learned a lot. I went to the first ever MLS game. And the reason I bring that up, the growth of soccer, both men and women's, is fascinating. And I just love the sport. And my first ever soccer game, south of you in London, there at Birmingham, was Derby and Crystal Palace. And Derek Bragg sent me and told me about what those the goals would the corner shot. And of course, Mikhail is the expert in our house here. But I'm thrilled to have you today, and I look forward to this. And I want to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. And it's exciting to be here. Danielle, I get the first couple questions here. This is my company. I
Go for
started
it.
with one student, dial up Yahoo. There was no lights, and now we're zooming on. Got a great staff and a bright future. My first question is tell us your story back to where you grew up and where you went to high school, because I think you have a marvelous journey, and there'll be questions, but it's all about working in soccer, but it's also about everybody's personal story. So thank you for joining us, and I'm gonna let you go back and reflect a little bit.
Absolutely, and it feels like a long time back, but I guess I should probably put a disclaimer out there that if I do say football, I'm referring to soccer. So
Yes.
I will just that'll absolutely happen.
Well, I
I'm
apologize
confident of
for
it.
that. We come over to Wembley every year. We do a conference, and I get the word football, and they were there first. And sometimes I think there should be a lawsuit, but I think we have so much other political strife right now. But Mikkel reminds me of that too. So I apologize for Americanizing the introduction. But now I'm gonna let you take over, and
Of
you
course.
you stick to the core nomenclature. I was the
Yeah.
one that was Creek. Yeah,
Okay. Perfect.
that was
So
good.
in terms of my background, I guess, in going right back to the beginning, which is a long time ago, I grew up in a town that's in Lancashire, which is based in the northwest of England,
Yeah.
called Blackburn. So for
Uh-huh.
anybody who does follow the Premier League, Blackburn actually won the Premier League, and I think it was the 94-95 season. So
Uh-huh.
I was very fortunate that I've been able to see that because if I'm being honest, I don't think I'll see it again in my lifetime from that
Yeah.
club. Um, just because of the way that the sport has evolved and not every club necessarily keeps up with the pace
Yeah.
of soccer or
Yeah.
football. So it's uh it's definitely something that I'm really privileged to have been part of because I don't think it's something that everybody will see that's from the town that I'm from. And then
Yeah.
from a high school perspective, so my background's I've come from a very traditional working class background. From a from a parent perspective and generationally as well, even further back. So I've very much grown up in the I don't
Mhm.
know what the reference is in America, but over here in the UK, a lot of people kind of class the term as coming from like a council estate, which is very
Yeah.
much kind of the working class sort of
Yeah. Yeah.
background that
Yeah.
people come from. So I'm very
Yeah.
much of that sort of heritage, I would say. And
Uh-huh.
it's not something that I try and come away from because I think it's part of you, the way that you end up being structured as you go forward
Yeah.
and grow as a person, let alone anything else. So it's not anything I ever try and shy away from because I think it's a part of who
Right.
I am and
Absolutely.
in terms of the fabric of kind of how I probably
Absolutely.
construct myself now. And
Yeah.
um in terms of the town itself that I grew up in, it's a big footballing town because
Yeah.
it is a town, it's not a city, so it's actually quite
Yeah.
small. And to say that we
You
won the
bet.
Premier with the Premier League
Yeah.
is obviously quite a big accolade for a town.
Yeah.
Um, so because of that, it's very rich in terms of football or soccer heritage, and
Right.
then that then means that you get a lot of people that are very passionate about football, as well as the UK
Of
in general
course.
is very much
Yeah.
like that anyway.
Yeah.
Um, so we grew up with it. So
Yeah.
when I was at school, it didn't feel like, for example, because you were female, you didn't get to play football.
Sure.
Like it's very much embraced, even, you know, back in the, for me, it would have probably been the early 90s where that was absolutely fine and it was expected because that's the culture
Absolutely.
in the country that we live in.
Yeah. No, I'm fascinated, but I think I'm a farm boy, city boy, and
Yeah.
soccer wasn't part of my culture because it just wasn't. And I'll tell you more later. Let's go then. In high school, we play like most people in the room. Then what'd you do after you left high school?
So I went in a very different path. I think I was quite probably similar to what I am now. I'm quite a logical person, so I try not to necessarily always go with the dream, but rather the
Yeah.
sensible option. And I wanted something that was probably a bit more secure. And
Yeah.
I think I was also a realist that, especially
Yeah.
back then, you know, women's football was not, it
Oh, of
didn't feel like
course.
a career path for
Yeah.
females then.
Absolutely.
So back then it was very much you played football if you were a female. It's not necessarily going to escalate into anything more than a hobby. And to be honest, if you were going to make it as a female footballer, all those opportunities were in America. That was the
Yeah.
messaging that was obviously given to us
Right.
at my sort of age. Um, and that's obviously where you see, you know, films like Bend It Like Beckham, where the successful female footballer only makes it when she gets offered a scholarship in the US. So
Yeah.
it was very much the same sort of messaging that we got as young females if you were interested in football. And I actually then, from a sensible perspective, started to look at IT. So I went into an IT sector. Um, I had an interest in, you know, computing, that side of things,
Absolutely.
and I
Yeah.
think logically that's kind of where my brain was.
Yeah.
And I actually ended up in our what is our National Health Service now, so the
Uh-huh.
NHS,
Yeah.
working within the IT department, so
Okay.
helping the
Right.
IT support, etc. But
Was it right there in town? Where were you when you took your first job? Where were you?
how old was I? Is that what you
No,
said?
no.
How old?
After high school, where did you? I mean, where did you go to school? I mean, you got the IT job. What location?
Yeah.
Were you close to
So
home?
yeah, I was still in
Yeah.
Blackburn. I
Okay.
didn't leave.
Yeah.
It was actually the hospital that I was born in. That's where I ended up in doing my apprenticeship. So it was an apprenticeship that I did with the NHS.
Wow.
Um, so I
Okay.
was I was there for 2 years after high school,
Yeah.
um, in which you get your qualification as you're learning on the job.
Yeah.
And
Keep going. I'm loving it. I know we'll get
yeah,
to
no,
the
no, it
football
it
world, but
it
I love it. No,
it does,
it's so
and
important because I think it's inspirational and it's really who we are as a company. We accelerate people's Rolodex is what we
of
do. So
course,
keep going.
yeah. So I always kind of stayed within sport from a hobby
Uh-huh.
perspective, and I was still active in terms of playing football socially.
Yeah.
Um, and one thing that I think I kind of realized at one point was that the job I had within IT was absolutely fine, and it kind of served its
Yeah.
purpose. But I just loved sport, and
Yeah.
I kind of felt that actually, was there a way that I could combine these things together?
Yeah.
And after that apprenticeship, I actually went to college and studied
Okay.
sport. So
Okay. There you go. There you go. Did you work
yeah,
in the with the team or anything? Did you work anywhere? Or did you just went to school in
no,
the sport world?
I just went straight to
Okay. And
education.
which college did you go to?
So I went to my local college. So I was still in
Okay.
Blackburn. It was Blackburn
Okay.
College.
Gotcha. Blackburn. Yeah.
Yeah, and they had an affiliation with a local university that was in a city not far from us called
Right.
Preston.
Right. Right. Right.
So I ended up kind of doing a university degree out of Blackburn College, but it was validated by
Got
Preston,
it. Excellent.
University of Central
Excellent.
Lancashire. Yeah.
Okay. Now let's get there. Now, how do we go? Where do we go from there?
So this is where I felt like it was the perfect combination of I've got an interest in technology.
Yeah.
I love sport. So is there something that I can do that actually puts these two things together? And when I first started in that university course, it wasn't that obvious what that could be. So
Of
I was
course.
very much introduced to coaching elements,
Uh-huh.
elements of sports science as well. And there
Yeah.
wasn't anything that was really jumping out at me in that first year. And it wasn't till the second year of my studies that I was introduced to performance analysis.
Wow. By
And
who?
by Blackburn College, the tutors there, and
Okay.
I then started to look at it even more, and what I
What
noticed was
year?
that,
What year was that? Because when I go bring Mikkel in on this, what year did we get the analytics going more? I mean, what year was
so
that?
this would have been 2006.
2006. Yeah, no, it's a
Yeah,
great story. I
so
mean,
it's
analytics.
nearly 20 years, yeah.
Yeah. So then, walk me through that path. Where'd you go next?
So after I then I ended up then moving into my third year of obviously my university degree, and I got opportunities in that third year to go and work with clubs. So I went to do some work with Bolton Wanderers, with Preston North End. I did
Did
a
they
little bit of
recruit you, or did you do
so I
informational interviews?
so I did it as part of my university program.
Yeah. Okay.
So they were kind of looking for people that could do analysis, that were obviously studying the topic as well. And the biggest opportunity was probably with Bolton Wanderers, because I first off started in the academy setup, which
Right.
at this time as well, Bolton were a team that were in the Premier League, so this was a Premier League academy,
Yeah.
and the academic term finished around April, which
Right.
also aligned with the academy finishing. So I was
Right.
actually asked to then move to
And
the
how many
first team.
women were in that laboratory, if I may, at the time when you
In
started?
that profession, zero.
Okay, yeah, I want to
Yeah,
clarify you're a pioneer, if I may. Okay, keep going because there's a lot of
yeah.
questions that want to come up here.
Um, so there were females, but they were in the typical
Yeah,
what you'd expect, so physio, medical type roles, etc.
right.
But in that sort of performance setting, it was zero.
Yeah,
And uh, uh, I then got asked to stay on to work with the first team. And at this time, they were a Premier League team, but they were
yeah,
struggling and they were at the bottom of the league, so they were
yeah,
fighting relegation.
right,
And that gave me so much exposure to obviously what a Premier League team actually does to
right,
survive relegation, and the types of
right.
things that you look at analytically that I'd
Yeah,
never been exposed to before as a student, because I'm still a student at this point.
yeah.
I guess the philosophical side of me here would say we're always a student, which we are.
Oh,
Um,
I love
but
it.
I was,
Yeah,
that is absolutely the setting that I was in, and I was so grateful for it. But that absolutely propelled me in terms of making sure that that was kind of the initial direction I wanted to go in.
right. And what was the
Um,
next move after that?
so
From employer?
so the next move after that was a slightly sideward step, I would say, which was actually moving into a university setting to
Wow.
teach
Okay.
elements of performance analysis.
What a great merge. So that was, I mean, I see it. I mean, that's my world. So then, how long did you teach?
I'm still teaching now.
I
So
know you are, but
that
let's
was the
keep going with your
beginning.
career. Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so 2008 is where
Yeah.
my teaching career really started. So
Okay.
I was employed at the university that I graduated from.
Right.
Um, and I was there for 6 years, and then I've moved on ever since that at different
But I want to know
universities.
that bridge from university into the industry, if I may.
Of course.
I'm always intrigued by people's paths and how you cross and jump lakes, if I may. So go
Yeah,
ahead.
it's important. So I then I was never quite happy with just kind of sitting in a university space. And the reason
Uh-huh.
for that is because I'd never set up as that was the thing that I wanted to do.
I know.
And
I know.
people still ask me today, like, was teaching ever the thing you chose? And I was like, no. And to be honest, I'm still not sure it is the thing that I choose, but I'm doing it.
Yeah, we got more in common than you realize. So then keep going before we get to our questions. So then
Yeah.
you left the university, you went back in the industry,
So I did it at the
and
same time.
yeah, okay. And then
I've stayed in it. I stayed in both.
yeah, no, I get, well, obviously I have for 55 years. So then navigate to your next job.
So whilst at the university, I got an opportunity to do some performance analysis at first team with Fleetwood Town.
Yeah,
And I was doing that alongside the teaching that I was doing. Um, and
right.
this for me was the pivotal moment of kind of where I've
Yeah,
ended up today, because the relationship that I built with that manager then
yeah.
set me up for the next two moves.
There you go.
And I still have a great relationship with that manager today. And
That,
I, yeah, I ended up moving a couple of clubs with that manager
yeah.
because of the relationship that was built there.
So I want to bring Mikkel in, and Mikkel, just a little of your background in soccer, and you get to ask the first question. I want all of you to start either typing in your question or let us know you'd like to have a question, because this is about you and about career strategy. And Danielle, the reason I like the story, we all start at different places. There's ways to get there, and I will share you this. My experience, analytics, it used to be the letter jacket. You had to play and know somebody to get in the game. And it was that way for centuries, it seems like. It's no longer. You can be a general manager of an NFL team and never played the game. And the same thing, men or women's.
Yeah.
And then the growth of women's sports is absolutely a phenomenon that's fabulous. So I just find it exciting, your story of bringing something to the table, to the pitch, and not just because your dad doesn't own a team or you didn't
Of
play at that
course.
level.
Yeah.
I think that's an encouragement on that. And before I go to Mikkel, I want you to give us your thoughts. Young people breaking into the business. Our company was designed as a Rolodex and as a mentoring. But your comments is that others will have questions about your incredible career. What's your advice you'd give everybody?
Was that directed to me? Sorry, Lynn.
Yeah, just you. Yeah. What do you hope to, and you're going to be a mentor for us. What do you hope to accomplish with us?
So I think one of the biggest pieces of advice that I give to anybody is you've got to be open to taking opportunities. That's
Yeah.
one thing. And there's also an element of bravery there as well, because one thing that I've found, especially, and I don't want to bang the drum too much, but especially being a
Yeah.
female in a very male
Yeah.
dominated environment, is that you constantly question your validity about being in the
Yeah.
room, and it feels like sometimes you're trying to prove yourself when it's
Yeah.
not necessarily the pressures of other people
Yeah.
putting that on you. It's your self
Yeah.
pressures that you're putting on
Yeah.
yourself. So the bravery element for me has always been just be comfortable in what you know, and
Yeah.
make sure that you get your point across, because
Yeah.
one thing that I've often said is that, my role at Manchester United, for example, I was the only female in the room all the time,
Unbelievable. Yeah.
and I always kind of felt like I did have a slightly heightened point to prove than everybody else.
Yeah.
And I always make the point of, it wasn't because they were doing anything, it was just my feelings about it. And
Right.
so it was my own bravery that needed to make sure that I pushed
Yeah.
that forward.
Right. You know what's interesting? Liz is a partner in my company and my wife, of course, but it's a fascinating having both in the room and the contributions that we
Mm,
have as a diverse. And you inspire me because my sister in the 50s was 3-on-3 basketball. We didn't want them to sweat, and they had to get to the kitchen as soon as the game's over. And then two
yeah.
stepdaughters that played, volleyball and basketball. So I'm thrilled at what sports has done, not just what the women have done, but the growth of soccer is huge. Mikkel, give a little of your background, and you get to go with the first question. Nick, start looking and seeking questions. I got plenty, but I'd rather have the people in the room that took time today to come in and listen, and they want to hear her, and they also have questions. Mikkel, you have a little introduction.
Yeah, Danielle, very nice meeting you. My soccer background is pure more as a former player. I was with PZI Eindhoven for many years. In fact, I seen the move Andre Oyer to Blackburn Rovers back in the day. Probably you know him very well, so he's a dear friend of mine. But that move was a long one in the making. They were so I, in that aspect, I kind of seen it from up close and what they were looking for, and the analysis what were done, not even prior to the tools that we have in today's market. But yeah, so I played the game for many years, and then I had an opportunity to come to the US and play a little bit more, and decided to become an agent after my career, and which I'm now teaching the soccer agent course here, and I'm also
Yeah.
teaching the FIFA prep course.
Yeah.
The FIFA had their next exam next week, so but yeah, so I'm very much involved in any aspects of soccer, so of football, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm
And
Americanized right now. I've been in the US for like nearly 20 years, so my apologies, Danielle.
he's safe, right? Uh, real quickly, Danielle, I do want to tell you, if you go back to, my stories from Kansas, I did have the opportunity to have the owner of our Kansas City Chiefs, American football. He was a visionary, and it was the late Lamar Hunt and Phil Anschutz. They're both from Lamar's from Texas, but they brought soccer to America. And the reason I bring that up today, in Kansas City, we have women's professional the professional women's soccer league, and or the national women's. But my point is the most important thing is they have their own stadium now. And my question to you, since you're on the other side of the pond, we've done the hockey over there too, and women's sports are exploding, even though you're in the men's sport. I'm not trying to play women and men here. We're talking about the growth of soccer and the World Cup coming to America. Your comments on the future of soccer, both men and women's, the good, the bad, and the ugly right now. What is your take on it with your perspective?
Yeah, so I've actually for the past 2 years been working in the female game as well. So I now work with the FA over here to scout for
Yeah.
the England team, and just seeing the contrast in terms of how that differs is one
Yeah.
thing in itself. But in terms of the good, the bad, and the ugly, I think we can probably start with the good and probably focus that on the women's side, because I think just the direction of travel that things are going in is such a positive in itself.
Yeah.
The only problem with that is that there are still sometimes certain mentalities around the game that mean
Yeah.
that it's stagnating a little bit, or sometimes it's actually going backwards. And ironically, Blackburn have actually recently just kind of had the women's academy cut completely. And they were playing in the championship of our women's league over here, which is tier 2. So it's really contrasting, even though I'm saying it's, the women's game is a good thing at the moment.
Right.
You've still got that kind of mixed balance of people that are really for it and investing a lot of money and resource. Like you've got, I think, is it Michelle Yang, who's got kind of the, London City Lionesses, and also, PSG, etc. So you've got that on one side of it, and then you've got academies that are being completely collapsed. So that's a real difference. Whereas if you shift that to the men's game, that would not happen in a championship club. So it's usually contrasting already. But I do like the way that the women's game is evolving, and it's not just necessarily here in the UK, but I also think it's kind of it's globally as well, and I really like that, because from a teaching perspective, for example, I feel like I'm not just trying to talk about what's happening in the UK or the US, but actually how is this expanding across Europe, for example, and Scandinavia and Australia, and how is that evolving from a talent perspective?
So let me ask you this: anybody, please ask questions. We're all about that. We always say if you don't have questions, you have all the answers. You have all the answers. Why would you waste your time? But they'll warm up here in a second. My next question, real quickly: you're going to be teaching a course for us. We're thrilled. We're excited. We do doc talks, but you'll be live every week with your class. Talk about what you hope somebody gains from your insight in the 8-week course. It's all lots of fun and a lot of interaction. But what do you hope to accomplish with people that are coming in that want to work and want to be like you, but they also want to work in the business side? What's your comment on that?
First piece of advice is don't always be like me, because I'm not that great. So that's the first piece of advice. Second thing is that it will be fun, because I'm very much teach the way that I talk. So I teach like I talk right now.
Good.
So one thing I try and do is make sure that it's not just me talking. It's very interactive. There will be obviously an expectation that there is engagement. But for me, in terms of where I want people to feel at the end of the 8 weeks, is that you're going out of that course feeling a lot more informed than when you came into it. You feel like you can go back into your setting, adding more value than what you could previously. And there's something new that you're taking from the course. And it's not that everything in the will be brand new, because obviously everybody's at different levels and has got different expectations. But if you can just take one nugget away from that 8-week course that makes such a difference in terms of what you're doing and who with, that for me is the ultimate win.
Daniel, I never thought this when on a napkin, I started the how to be an agent, the first course, and it was primarily American football. Our secret sauce, if I would say anything's powerful about our 8-week online course with a long time afterwards, we still allow them to come in. We do resume service, but I got to be honest with you. What I found most fascinating is doing informational interviews where you call up somebody and say, hey, I'm taking an 8-week course from Danielle Prescott and Dr. Lashbrick and Mikhail, and I just need a short interview. I am shocked, and we have over 30,000 alums, and I'm shocked how many people do information interviews. We always send them a Starbucks gift card. Even in England, we send a Starbucks gift card, and they call us up and thank us, and then we ask them to speak at our conference. To be honest with you, people after our course and during our course get confident to ask the right questions. And there's so many people that don't mind answering questions for young people that want to break in, and the resources are all over. And a book is outdated the day it's printed. So your comments of the evolution of what's going on and the growth of the diversity in sports, and yes, you can do it. And correct me if I'm wrong, but people can work in sports without a letter jacket.
Absolutely. And I think one of the key things as well is that, because I often ask myself, why me? So why is it me that's in front of you rather than somebody else? And one reason and one sort of conclusion, I guess, that I come to is that I try and contextualize everything. So if there's an example that I can give you in terms of my experiences that then you can relate to really well in your setting, that's kind of where you need to be, because you want to contextualize something, you want to make sense of it that fits your setting and your sort of situation. And that's exactly why I come to that conclusion, because I've got a lot of examples from things that a lot of people don't get to see, because they're not in a club like Man United, for example. So what actually happens that people don't see behind that door, and that's some of the obviously the insight that I can provide in relation to contextualizing some of this.
Danielle, I say go global or go home, and I look at 8 billion people around the world, and the undiscovered women's soccer player in some part of the world, and just going back to the movie Bend It Like Beckham was a great movie in my opinion, just like the Jerry Maguire movie. But the idea of talent discovery and analytics, how does that relate, and how has that improved over time? Because everybody wants the next quote Pele, if I can age myself. What's your comment about how important analytics is to talent discovery?
So I think it feeds into the bigger picture of how we work now in soccer anyway. So everybody's trying to get that marginal gain, whether it's a second advantage or whether it's a 10-minute advantage. But in relation to analysis itself and the analytics side of it, firstly, you've got kind of software developers that are constantly bringing out new products that are of use. And I think there's an element that some people fear with things like that, because they think that technology is going to replace them, which I completely get with the whole AI thing. But one thing I often say to a lot of students that I work with is that technology is not there to replace you, it's there to aid you. It's there to help, it's there to help you and make your life easier, not harder or replace you. So the advancement in the technologies is a big push with that. But the way in which, for example, we're looking at different metrics within the data is also a key thing. So understanding, for example, XG, which is obviously expected goals ratios, and how that plays a part in what that therefore means in terms of data modeling and predicting outcomes for players. And when you get into that, you're then starting to think, right, so let's say from Mikel's perspective, from an agent perspective, what does that do to the value of a player if we're able to work on top of that predictive modeling?
Good job.
And the whole I don't know if anyone's seen the Kevin De Bruyne example, where he hired a data analyst specifically to predict what he will be worth throughout his contract, so that he could then use that as part of his negotiation.
Absolutely. Let's go to Gina. Gina, introduce yourself and bring your question. And thanks for coming in today, Gina. Go ahead.
Hi, it's actually Jenna. Sorry.
Jenna, I'm sorry. I get corrected every day in the office.
It's good. It's good. Everyone does it. It's cool. Yeah. So I'm a career academic. I'm in Chapel Hill. I work at UNC as a researcher. And mainly, I've worked with first responders over the past decade, and soccer is my first love, and I've always wanted to break into soccer. And I find it's like really hard to break into soccer if you have no professional experience, like professional club experience or even collegiate level experience. And I'm sure some of you know that, as with most industries, there's definitely some politics that go into getting into certain places. So a lot of my work does now focus on like organizational change, and I am constantly seeing roles that HR is doing that function, but really like my role is more data driven and science driven. And that's kind of what I would be looking for. And I've seen some postings of positions like this, but very rarely that's separated out from like the HR function of people doing benefits and reporting and more like HR reporting versus like looking at an organizational culture, seeing what metrics there are, what can be improved, how to improve employee and or player experience within a club.
Let me, as we go, I want to get Danielle's comment, but I want you to know, and I'm an educator, 55 years. I'm thrilled the evolution of confidence and connectivity, because your dad didn't own a team and you didn't play at that level, but you're so talented. Don't underestimate yourself. Given an opportunity, information interviews, and resume, yeah, there's no reason you can't follow your dream of getting paid for your passion. I feel strongly, and that's why Danielle and others are in our room. Danielle, your comments to her.
Yeah, so nice to meet you, Gina, firstly. When you started talking about kind of your role and what you do and the data side of it, I immediately thought of I've had a recent interaction with a person called Lee Mooney. So if anybody wants to look at them on LinkedIn, please feel free. And Lee owns a company called Mud Analytics, and that's MUDD Analytics. And the talk that he gave, I thought was really interesting, because his initial talk looked like it was going to come in and talk about talent development. But what he actually said is that they'd use data analysis to look at organizational structure within a club. And he gave some really great examples. So he'd worked with the likes of Vincent Kompany at Burnley Football Club, and then moved to, I think it was Anderlecht, where Vincent Kompany then moved to. So he said that you cannot start at talent development. You have to start at company culture. And a really classic example that was used in that conversation was, ironically, the situation at the moment with Manchester United. So if anybody is following that, there's been multiple managers being turned over. The performances are not getting any better by any means. And the way that I kind of contextualize this, as I said before, was that I thought of the situation a little bit like, you've got all these players in this team, and it's a little, if we categorize them as, let's say the children, and they're constantly having multiple parents feeding in. So they've got multiple shared custody across all these managers.
That's good.
Every single manager has got a different behavior expectation. We expect you to play this way. We expect you to be over here. We expect you to be doing this. And they're being pulled from pillar to post all the time. So how is a team that isn't necessarily changing, but the managers are? So in the context, the parents are constantly changing, giving their behavior expectations. That is not going to create a stable working team. And what he said is that you have to address that bit first before you even get to the talent. Because it's not that you suddenly have really talented players that just aren't talented anymore. There's something kind of fundamentally at the base that's going wrong. And he uses data to kind of look at where, for example, those managerial changes are starting to have different impacts in that data.
Yeah, but Jenna, you have a follow-up before I go to Stephen?
No, thanks for pointing him out, and I've heard of him, but I'll watch that talk, and that's pretty much exactly.
I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you for just signing up for this to gain your confidence, because I believe everybody should get paid for their passion. And before I go to Stephen, I also want to remind you, I tell our students every day in all sports, everybody knows somebody down the street, and the world is we're in a revolution. I just came back from the NCAA convention, but with transfer portal, the idea of somebody going from somewhere to America in any sport, women's basketball, women's soccer, or men's, it makes no difference. We're in a revolution. It's almost like Uberizing of revolution. So you could keep your day job and represent an athlete with your knowledge today and what you're learning. So keep all that in mind. There's a lot of ways to get in the world of sports. It's pretty exciting. Thank you. Let's go to Stephen with your introduction and question for Danielle. Stephen, thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me. First off, thank you, Lynn, for hosting this. Michael, thank you for your help. And thank you, Danielle, for joining this and sharing a little about your story and about your career. I'm really honored to meet you, and it's been a huge pleasure learning about you and your career so far. So my name is Stephen Fellinger. I'm a recent graduate from the University of Miami and currently working for as an associate for the ownership group for a Danish professional soccer team. So when saw you and this call, was very interested to kind of learn about you and your career. And yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, what's your question?
So would love to learn a little bit about how you kind of handle comparing data between different leagues in different countries.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, it is a tough one. My first response to that is, have you come across a company called Impact?
I have not, no.
So they're a German company. It's spelled like, it's like the word impact, but instead of the A, it's an E. And a lot of clubs are starting to use that now as a provider. And the reason being is that they do exactly what you've just asked in that question. So they essentially gauge the levelness between different leagues in different countries and give you a rating in terms of, for example, if this was in the women's game, for example, where does our WSL team in the UK compare to a team, for example, in Spain or in Turkey, and it gives you kind of a ranking system so that you can really then get in line which leagues start to compare against each other in the world, which obviously then helps you with individual players.
Stephen, your follow-up before I go to Sheik?
No, that's good. It definitely gives me some research and something I want to look into. Thank you.
And Stephen, thanks for coming in. Let's go to Sheik with your introduction and question or comment to Danielle. Unmute yourself. We got a man on the moon. We can unmute that mic. You got it. There you go.
I'm muted now.
Can hear you. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I'm Sheik and I'm from New York City. I actually done quite a lot for the past like 5-6 years in terms of coaching, also with playing as well. I've coached youth soccer for about 4 or 5 years now. Started out with New York City Football Club. I was doing community coaching, more like recreational things. And this past year, I had the opportunity to coach travel soccer here in the U.S., which was a really big step up for me. It was really big challenge, and also coached at a middle school as well as a head coach. So honestly, and also played for my first college up in Broome, upstate New York. And honestly, I'm honestly just like obsessed with like soccer or football, just about as much as everyone here. And I think
what's your question, big guy?
Yeah. So it's for Danielle. I did a little bit of research, and really honored to meet you. And so I know that you worked for Manchester United, and one of my questions would be, who was probably the best player or the most like reputable player that you have like covered or analyzed or scouted in your career?
And analytically speaking, Danielle.
Do you know what? If someone said to me, "What's the most question you get asked?" It's that one.
Yeah,
it's always that one. So there's a couple of players that obviously are still coming up through the academy. So I worked for United for 7 years. So there's still some that are still to come to fruition or the potential. But one of the players that kind of was part of the evolution that I was part of would be like Kobe Manu. So Kobe Manu obviously is now breaking through into England. So he's a talent within himself, and I think he's going to be, hopefully, if the contracts go right, at Man United for a long time. So he'd be one of them. And then we've got a few that are sort of coming up. So there's a couple of players that we didn't get, which are frustrating, that ended up at other clubs, which are now starting to pop up elsewhere. So and the more of the younger players, so the likes of Tottenham beat us to certain players, and the likes of Arsenal, but unfortunately some clubs just aren't quick enough to make the move. But Manu's probably the biggest one that I could probably say, and then we've got a few lads that are still growing into themselves going forward.
Do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, so I actually Lynn, it's really great meeting you, and I really love like the whole idea of like what you do with like sports management worldwide. And I actually wanted to like register for the soccer management and scouting course this summer.
Yeah.
So this was like a good segue for me. So
I appreciate it.
All right.
You know, I without being salesy here, Mikhail's going to answer questions for all of you, and any final questions for Danielle. I have one final question for Danielle, but we really did. We started with one student, and then two, and then my account a long time ago said you need to add more courses. I was strictly making up an agency, What's interesting 30 years later, Danielle, we have over 30,000 graduates from 164 different countries. We're getting ready to launch multiple languages with AI. And the reason I say AI, I'm going to ask you the question. It's affecting all of us every day. Your comments on AI, we even teach a course with AI. Everybody's embedded with AI. I have my NI. I got Nick and Ike in the office, and they're kind of my AI. I'm convinced AI will never be able to replicate me because I think I'm off the charts. Not good. I just think I'm off the charts. I don't think they can get my whatever. There's something wrong with me, if I may. So your comments about AI, and anybody else can ask a question before I hand the mic to Mikhail to talk about what you get if you do want to decide to do further than just a doc talk. Go ahead, Danielle.
I love AI. First off, I think it's one of the best things that have happened of recent times. But I am also very cautious about AI because I think a lot of people can, take that as gospel and whatever it says is what we go with. And I think there's a bit of a danger with that. And I've seen football clubs in the past that have really kind of relied on data, actually, not just necessarily AI, but on data to make decisions and only go for that based on data. So I feel like AI kind of feeds into that notion even more. So I love it, but I approach with caution. Absolutely.
And Danielle, I think being in the old football world, it was always the old scout that was the old player, and there was no analytics. Reputational was influential in the war room, if I may. I remind everybody that coaches and general managers are fired every year because they miss. And that's the beauty of sports. You still don't know. Even if an AI team played another AI team, you'd still tune in to see which AI team won. And so that's why I think sports has got a powerful future. I think AI is here for forever. But I do think there's always going to be a need for the people in the room to fit in. And I don't feel threatened by it.
No, I agree with that. And I think one thing that AI can't do is understand people's personalities, perceptions, how what is normal behavior compared to abnormal behavior when you're seeing things on the pitch. And that, for example, is what you can't see. So if I put into an AI program, tell me how Mo Salah performed this season, it's going to tell me everything that everybody's seen and then summarize that. But actually, if you're not there kind of watching the games and seeing how he is in the warm-up, how he is in practice, there's elements that are missing. So you're effectively doing a jigsaw without all the pieces being present.
And I will share this with the AI, and they're worried about cheating in school. I'm so glad the transparency of our company. It's not about, we do 2-minute drills and everything, but we want you to learn, and we want your contribution in 8 weeks with your course. That you have your own, I call it sportfolio, but you get what you want out of it. We want you to adrenalize today and monetize tomorrow. Forget about AI and cheating. If you want to do AI on all your coursework, that's your loss. You're losing in the end because the information interview, it's going to be hard to say, here's my interview. Can you look at my AI interview with you? I mean, it just doesn't work that way. And that's why I'm so blessed with you and all the mentors we have, Mikhail included. We all have fun. And I always say to people, you can drink beer in my class. 1, I can't stop you. 2, I can't make you. But why shouldn't we have fun in a classroom? I mean, most people have the game on.
I didn't know that, Lynn. Can I drink beer as well? I didn't know that.
And I give Liz credit for finding you and discovering you, and Ike and Mikhail. And our football department, as I will clarify, when I see you, I'm going to be nervous saying the word soccer. But I am thrilled about this. Mikhail, do you have any, I'm going to hand the mic to you, but anything else you want to ask Danielle? And I don't want her to feel like she has to stay any longer. It's getting late over there. And speaking of drinking, maybe you can have a drink, right?
No,
Go ahead,
I would absolutely agree with Danielle. There's always a human element that needs to be added to when it's, analytics scouting. Me as an agent, I'm also a scout. I go to games and actually analyze players myself. Yes, I get Y Scout links sent all the time, but that does not. I mean, it's a great scouting report, but at the end of the day, I want to see it with my own eyes, right? So, and of course, AI is going to it's going to come in. It's inevitable, but it will never replace the human element that's still needed in today's world in football. So, and I think in any sports. So,
can I ask you a question, Mikkel?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Does it frustrate you that you get sent clips that are just of highlights?
I hate it. I can't. I mean, I can look like $1 million on a 1 minute highlight reel, right? So I always go back and say, send me full game footage.
That's a great question.
That's how I can analyze you. That's how I can actually make an opinion about you.
Yeah,
not just
absolutely. The mistakes are just as valuable as the world-class highlights reel that everybody seems to make and thinks that's the thing
and
to
music.
do.
I don't want music in highlights. It's so distracting, and I get it. You want to have a good pump up music, but and that's why we teach our students. If you get sent over a highlight video, you don't want anything that's going to distract them. Don't have pictures moving, twisting. Oh,
Yeah.
this is so and so. This is my date of birth. Great, but actually create a CV or a player bio, right? Where all the information, it's just a simple one sheeter, right? A one pager.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hate it, Danielle. I totally.
Yeah. And Danielle, real quickly, and I'm going to leave here. Mikhail's going to stay and talk to any students. But Danielle, I will. We're so lucky because your philosophy, even as an educator, I walked away from tenure at 30 years old, but I never left teaching. But I evolved, and I call it Socrates. But what I know for sure is I know nothing, and you know this today. Whatever your questions are asked, the next time you're in a Zoom with your class, there's going to be questions asked that you haven't thought of. And that's why we grow together. We're lucky to have you part of our family, and I can't wait to see you soon. Okay. Mikhail, thanks for coming. Go ahead.
I've already learned a word from you, Lynn, that I am absolutely going to take back to the university that I teach at, which is Sportfolio.
Thank you. I came up with.
I love that, and I can't believe I've never thought of it.
No, well, I'll bring a little at this stage of my life, but I'm smart enough. I'm a bottle of wine. But what a great group of people! I want to thank all of you, and please feel free to ask Mikhail some questions. This is a business where it's lifetime with us, but more importantly, I want you all working in sports. If you're not working in sports, I can help you. If you're working in sports, I can help you grow in sports. So we're an accelerator. We're not a college student. We're not rigorous. We're invigorating is the only thing I can say. And we have fun. And I do a worldwide chat every Sunday. I've been doing it for 30 years. Last week I had 35 in there all over the world talking everything from football, F1. It doesn't make any difference. It's about sports. It's about careers. And the people come in and we're all excited and we get confident and we're not afraid to ask questions. So thank you, Mikhail. I'll give it to you. Thank you. Nick, thank you very much.
All right. Shake, you have one more question?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So in the world of obviously no, like in the world of like scouting, so I coach youth kids. This past like month or so, I've coached U10s. So obviously when you're looking at players, there's obviously a lot to judge them based off of, but I'd like to ask like what would to you like as a scout when you're going to see a player for the first time, see them play, what really are you really looking for from them?
Is that a question to me, Shake?
Or yeah, you, Danielle. Yeah.
Okay. So one thing that I've learned probably over the more recent years is that never rule kids out, because you never know kind of how they're going to develop or at what rate they're going to develop at. So that's one thing I've definitely learned, is not to exclude kids too young. In terms of the things that I would be looking at that age, so you're not expecting perfection at 10. There'd be kind of obviously game understanding. You'd be looking for little things in terms of like game intelligence as well. So are they starting to pick up on kind of positioning and movement and where they should be? So a lot of maybe sort of off the ball skills as well as on the ball skills. And the reason for that is probably a question that I would ask you, which would be, in a 90-minute soccer game, how much time do you actually think players spend on the ball?
You're asking me this?
Yeah.
So yeah, in American soccer here, we have like 7v7, so they play a lesser game, like 40 minutes about. So they're not that quite ready. They go from 7v7 to 9v9 to 11v11. So but I did coach a 11v11 team, a middle school team. They were 14, 15 years old. But so you're asking like how would
so if they get to the obviously adult level, in terms of 90 minutes, how much time do you think they actually spend on the ball in that 90 minutes?
So realistically, I feel like in the professional game or higher levels of the game, touches, like to come by touches in the game is very scarce, and everybody's just like focusing more on like obviously like positioning and like just their roles on the field. So I don't think that much.
It's the answer's 3 minutes.
3 minutes, yeah.
So the other 87 minutes are off the ball movements. So you're not necessarily looking for, you know, that same percentage rate at under 10s, but what I'm trying to say is the fixation isn't necessarily always about the on the ball stuff. It's the intelligence of the movement and the patterns that they can work out and that sort of things that you're looking for. In terms of one thing as well, with especially boys at under 10, they're probably, you know, the kind of pubescent, so they haven't kind of hit any sort of maturation yet. So they will be very small, which obviously from a proportionate perspective, that football will look quite big. So you've then got to obviously take that into account in terms of, you know, the passes, for example, is the power there behind the ball? Maybe not. Depends on obviously if there's an adjustment to the ball size, etc. So there's a lot of things that feed into kind of making that, I want to say diagnostic, but also the assessment of the talent at that age. But typically you're looking for really kind of basic, simplistic movements, but with a level of control, with really well maintained possession. And it's not about overcomplicating it. And there is also the understanding of the game, and the movement off the ball is probably one thing I would say, because that shows a level of intelligence that might show them above other players that they're playing with.
I'm happy that you say that, because I feel like in travel soccer here specifically, like a lot of the clubs here, they focus more on like individual type of skills, technical skills, I guess, where players are doing things like you said that can overcomplicate and can really make the game kind of different for them. Or
Yeah.
But I love, like you said, like just trying to maintain possession and off the ball movements, which is really, really important. And I feel like it's really hard to teach at that age.
Yeah, there is a technical component, but there is also kind of a basic level that needs to be there before they get even more technical. So as they get older and obviously things get a little bit more complex, then those technical skills should develop as well. But one thing I often say with a lot of players is that you're looking for things that are untrainable, and sometimes game intelligence, for example, and you know, being quite creative and smart is something that that is coming with them as a person, not necessarily as a player. And I think there's parts of that you want to see that is kind of like, actually they look kind of a special player in terms of how they do things, how they conduct themselves, how they move themselves on the pitch. Because you can train somebody to be technically better, and you can train somebody to have more power through specific training practices. But there's some things that are just really difficult to train because they're innate in them as a person.
Good question, Shig. Anybody else had another question, or?
I do. I just can't get my mic or my hand to come up. I don't know. It doesn't work.
This is Mike.
Yeah.
What's your question, man?
So you brought up the someone's videos and some of their highlights. So here I'm out of Canada, so I'm in Ontario, Canada, and we're in a little community of about 130,000. So I coach the college varsity team here, and I also run men's league team, and I also play. But the issue that I'm finding with a lot of at least in Canada, the programs is when, say for Ontario soccer, for example, to make a provincial team, if you're under 15 or under 16 or whatever's up to the 19 years old, they only see the players usually that are in in the Toronto area, like Toronto, Ontario area. So all the players on the outside, what's happening is it's basically parents or the team they're playing for is sending in a highlight video. And I'm seeing a lot of players in our area that really aren't the best players on, say, a certain team, but because their parents are making a video of a highlight and it's getting sent to the Ontario Soccer, they've never seen the player in person, but they're picking players from that, from those videos that they're getting sent. Just wondering if you have any opinion on that and anything how you can. They also stick to scouting in the soccer management course of not sports management worldwide. I actually took it twice because they gave it the second time for free. But yeah, any opinions on that and any ways you can look at different ways of scouting out of that kind of with the video things?
Well, I always ask the person who's sending me the highlight video, you have to cut clips from game footage, right? So I know they have the full game footage. I know they have it. So put in the file and send it over, you know, whether it be 1, 2, 3 games, you know, if the player is really good, I'm willing to spend time on it. You know, and that's how it goes really. But then, you know, it's, you know, at a highlight video, you can somewhat tell if the player, you know, like touches or some ball movements, like Danielle said, off the ball movement, and the work that's been done off the ball, right? You know, positioning. It all depends on positioning, right? So there's that. Like as a number 9, you know, what type of runs are you making to get behind the last line, right? You know, are you making diagonal runs and try to, you know, beat the offside trap, or how smart? How's your IQ like that? And if players just don't get it, and we all know some strikers that just don't get it, you know, whether it be at an academy level, but you know, it's you know, 90%, you know, of players, it's really up here, right? It's really, you know, how can I, you know, I have it up here, but how can I now use that and utilize that and actually put it out on the pitch? And you can't see that with a highlight video. You really can't. I have a way, it's called the 4 pillars. Okay, so that's how I analyze players. You know, it's the stuff that they're doing on the field, right? And whether it be the mental aspect of the game, the psychological aspect of the game, people, they overlook those things tremendously. Yes, we all know some players have great skill set. They have to run off the ball, but now let's talk about the other things. You know, how do you deal with defeat, or how do you recoup how do you react when you get pushed off the ball and now they're going the opposite direction, now it's transitioning? How's that, you know, how are you doing as a player, you know? And you know, those are the things that you can't see in a highlight video.
Yeah,
I also think as well on that, sorry Mike, I was just saying that I also think there's a way in which you could create a metric based on the videos that come in, because the people that are making these highlight clips, you know, they're not scouts, they're not coaches, they are parents, as you say.
Yeah.
So their perception of a good pass or their perception of good parts of good play might not necessarily correlate to your expectations either. So I think there could be an element where actually you utilize, for example, if you've got 20 videos sent in that are all showing successful passes, you will see that there'll be different levels even within those passes from those 20 players. So you can essentially create your own metric, I guess, as a shortlisting or a filtering tool to say, right, of every video that we see that's sent in of successful passes, what sort of qualities are we looking for within those passes? And that then allows you to be able to create your own gauge in relation to sifting through some of this. That'd be my take on this as well, because I when you said it, I was like, they're literally just putting their perception on what they see of good play.
Yeah.
As non-professionals, yeah.
Yeah, and I think my take anyway on it is the players at a younger age, when you see their vision, positioning, that's a lot of that stuff. It's a little bit harder to teach than you hit a ball. Okay, you can teach someone to hit a ball better or make a pass. It's the vision, positioning, and you're right. Like if they lose the ball, are they just giving up on it? Or are they tracking back and things like that? And you're right about the parents making the video a lot of times. So my son's on one of these teams too. He plays, and it's usually the parents that have never played the sport in their life, and they think, okay, yeah, him making a pass or shot at a certain time, it looks good on a camera, but it's not really. When there's 2 people say open on the left and they're just taking a shot for just to take a shot or whatever. So
well, I've never got a highlight video where weaknesses are being shown, right? So there's that as well. So, it's so it's always good to have a full game footage, preferably 2 or 3, so you can look at the consistency, because, players, they may have an off day, so you gotta take it in consideration as well.
Yeah, and the movement off the ball too, whether they're not, they don't even have possession of the ball, where they're going, what they're doing, how they're tracking, stuff like that. I don't think that's a good thing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Mike.
Okay, guys. Let me share a little bit about, sport. Y'all, all you guys that came out here to, obviously meet Danielle, and she's one of our instructors. I'm one of our instructors as well, and really how our course could be valuable to you guys, right? One of our instructors actually took one of our courses, and he became the sporting director for Vancouver, and he's now working with San Jose, right? So just by taking a course, and he did not have the actual background of soccer, so it just goes to show that, if you put some time, and if you're willing to educate yourself, right? You guys all may know a lot of stuff about soccer, but there's a lot of unknowns, right? I'm by no means an expert on analytics whatsoever. So I will be learning a tremendous amount of, valuable lessons from Danielle, right? Danielle might not know some of the, negotiation part of an agent, or how me and her can work together and kind of create a player that's not so attracted to the market. What can we do to make that player attracted to the market, right? So there's a lot of unknowns, a lot of things that we don't know, right? So why not, educate yourself, right? So we offer a platform, whether you want to, if you've done all your education, we also offer a master's program or a doctorate degree, if you are into that. Now, if you want to stick to soccer, you want to become an agent, that's what I teach. You want to work in analytics, Danielle, she's amazing in what she's doing. You want to work in the front office. We have Gordon Klestian, who's with the LA Galaxy. He's the soccer vice president of soccer operations, very dear friend of mine. And then also we have Fazili, who took this course, who took the soccer the GM scouting course, and is now working with the San Jose Earthquake. So if you guys have any questions, and the pathway, like Danielle, she starts the pathway for a young lad or a girl all the way up. How can she create a successful pathway from the age of 10 or 11 all the way up to making to the senior level at the first team, right? This is kind of the same concept. How can we help you guys to get where you are today and to get where you want to be? Okay. Any questions on that? Anything you guys want to check out some of our stuff? I'm assuming you guys already browsed on our website, our catalog. We offer quite a few courses that could really help you out. And then we have the connections, right? I mean, Danielle has tons of connections in the UK. I was born and raised in Holland, in Europe, played in Spain for a couple of years as well. So, and here in the US now, in terms of network, there's no lack of.
Exactly. Well, if that is it, Danielle, if there's no more questions, Danielle, thank you again for taking the time to come out and speak with everyone. I know it's been a pleasure to hear from you. I'm really excited for your next soccer analytics class that is coming up on June 16th. As can't miss, if you've even heard some of the questions today, how do you compare different, comparing apples to oranges from different leagues? If you want to be able to find out that true answer, I would recommend taking the soccer analytics course and hearing from Danielle yourself, and kind of gain that access and impact, no pun intended, from someone who actually is lived it and is currently living it in industry, and that's what SMWW brings to in all sports, especially in the soccer world. So if that is it, Danielle, you can thank you again for your time. And hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Also, if you guys missed it on your On the slideshow, we're doing an exclusive discount for this course. If you go Prescott 500, you'll get $500 off just for being a Doc Talk registrant today and coming in. So make sure you can use that. That is valid up until the course start date. So thank you again for coming. And Danielle, have any last thoughts?
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you, and the questions have been great. So it's got me absolutely prepared for the start of this new course. So I hope to see some of you there, and if not, then hopefully I'll see some of you in the future.
Perfect. And we do hold a MLS preseason meet and greet at the Coachella Valley Invitational. So be on the lookout for more details as we go out through the year, and that stuff gets announced for that. And that typically gets held at the beginning of February. So look out for that in 2026. That's it from everyone. Thank you again. And I hope, as Dr. Lashbrook always says, go global and go home. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Thanks,
Bye, guys.
everyone.
Everyone, take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.